Hey everybody, welcome back to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan,
And I'm Rob.
and today is Jackie Robinson Day, so we're swinging for the fences with more fantasy baseball.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan, Fantasy R&R.
All right, Rob, it's great to have you back again. I got some questions. Let's do a little bit more Q&A here.
Yeah.
I'm wondering who we should sell high on now that we're getting into weeks 2 and 3 of fantasy baseball. There's some players that may have had a hot start, but you don't expect them to keep it up, like Joe Musgrove and his no-hitter, and then only turning in 4 innings the other day, or maybe some of these older players that are starting off hot, like Cedric Mullins, that guys might not want to hold on the whole season. What are your thoughts on this?
Selling high is always an opportune time to get something good for somebody that you know is on the way out. Being this early, it can be difficult, but doable. One guy that we had talked about last week, Ryan McMahon, he's a guy who's always had a big strikeout problem. Yeah, he plays in Colorado, but if you can get somebody to take Ryan McMahon off your hands and get more of a durable guy, or maybe even a guy who somebody else is thinking is overperforming, those are some of my favorite trades, like a Joe Musgrove. Yeah, Joe Musgrove struggled last week. He's a really good pitcher, really great offense behind him, plays in Petco ballpark. A traded scenario like that, I think, is ideal. I think Ryan McMahon is a good player, but man, if you could get a Joe Musgrove, even somebody like our favorite player in the whole wide world, Jake Cronenworth, who just continues to destroy the baseball, I would strongly recommend going something like that route.
Yeah, so I've also, speaking of Mullins, there's been a resurgence of late for some of these older players. I'm seeing a lot of teams picking up guys that used to be good a few years ago, but let's say the last 2 seasons haven't really been performing. Justin Turner, he puts out his stats, but it's not like he's been a top 15 draft pick. And then Jed Lowrie from the Mets. Mets fans must be really pissed off right now. He was on the Mets, right? Yeah, right. And they must be pissed off right now because he goes over to the Athletics and he's doing absolutely great. But what do you make of this resurgence of the veteran players and guys like JD Martinez? Is it just time to accept that maybe we gotta hold on to these guys for like 2-3 years in a row and just wait for them to hit that dead point in their career? Are there some that you like and some that you don't? What's going on there?
Yeah, what I like to refer to them as swan song seasons. You see a lot of guys like a Carlos Beltran, a Lance Burke, a couple guys off the top of my head that I remember struggled for a good period of time, and then Adrian Beltre, who then suddenly has monster years. Early into the season, it's tough to gauge whether or not this is legitimate, but it can be. Jed Lowrie is tearing the cover off the ball right now in Oakland, where he really blossomed. He's a really great baseball player. Why not? Why not take a chance, see if this is legitimate? And, if you got the roster spot, great. You don't have to start them immediately, put them on your bench if you have to, but you got to get ahead of the curve on some of these guys. And, hey, you know what? Jed Lowrie's got an injury history, as you just aforementioned there. 2 seasons with the Mets and I don't even know if he struck out 5 times. I don't even think he had 5 at-bats for that matter. Why not? Why not give it a shot? I think Jed Lowrie, especially at second base, being a very weak position this season in fantasy, plug and play and see where it goes from there.
Well, speaking of second base, you get nervous about any players? Like, let's look at Gleyber Torres for a second, or how about Victor Robles, who's not getting on base, not stealing bases for people. Yeah. He doesn't hit for power very often. Who are you nervous about at the moment?
Let's just hop on the Victor Robles train really quick, because that was somebody what I like to refer to essentially as a spring training darling. It's like spring training, oh my gosh, look at this Josh Bell sticking with the Nationals. Tore up spring training, and they are puttering to begin the season. Again, do you freak out right now? No. Do you bench these guys? Absolutely. Let's say a Jed Lowrie sitting there, and you are not a Gleyber Torres. You got to give that guy a chance. But a Josh Bell who struggled last year, maybe you contemplate that. If you need second base, first base is a very, very deep position. Second base, if you can jump on a Jed Lowrie, who's looking good in a very nice position, I believe, batting in the 3 slot in Oakland right now. Maybe you contemplate making that move. Don't wait too long. I've been guilty of it, watching somebody for too long, and then finally somebody snags them. They go off all season. You're just like, well, I knew it. I should have jumped on it when you can. Don't make a bonehead move, but at the same time, just if you need the position, go for it.
One guy I'm going to bring up real quick, I really liked him in his rookie year, was Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
Seems to be his batting average terrible last year, but he really seems to be struggling this year. And on top of that, the Mets games keep getting delayed or postponed, and I'm getting a little nervous here now. Am I going to be leaving him in my starting first base slot every week he's available, or do I bench him and let's say Cronenworth, who is available to play a number of positions, including first base, do I stick him in that slot and let Alonso ride the bench? Or let's say it's a points league. Do I just hope for the points, or if it's a stats league, do I take Alonso out?
Yeah, once again, first base is very deep. Pete Alonso, if there's one thing I have noticed in fantasy baseball, especially the last few years with sabermetrics playing such a big part of the game, when somebody has a K rate that is just 30% and above, these players tend to have very big holes in their swings, and these pitchers will execute these holes. To the point where they can't get the dang bat on the ball. Pete Alonso, again, is another one of these spring training darlings. Came out, crushing the ball, hitting opposite field hits, looked like he's back to normal. Currently sitting on a 207 average. So, if you got Cronenworth sitting there, who's, mind you, I think sitting on a 330 plus, again, another very potent lineup. Yes, you're playing a Jake Cronenworth over Alonso right now. And Alonso, preseason in these drafts, we're going 4th, 5th round, where Jake Cronenworth, a lot of people, he was left on the back burner because they were worried about time concerns. Go figure. Sure. He's the better player as it stands, again, week 2 or week 3, whichever.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week. Cronenworth is not crushing the ball for power, but I think after today, where he had a nice performance, I think maybe a walk or two and went 2 for 2, he's actually sitting at 346 for the year with 8 runs and a handful of RBIs. So I'm really loving him, and I've mostly been using him at utility because I think that's one of his strongest fantasy slots in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about it, but the fact that he can play multiple positions, he's like one of those guys you can stick in utility slot and you can still have your Trevor Story at shortstop or your Alonso at first base and still get your points from Cronenworth. One of the greatest calls you've ever made, and you talked about him last year, so I just want to tip my hat to you. You really know your baseball. Moving on here a little bit, let's go with now that it's been a full couple of weeks into the season, are there guys you're ready to cut bait with? We talked last week about being an impatient manager, but we saw the way Max Fried looked, and Marcell Ozuna. He finally got his home run, but he's really been underperforming. Who are you going to cut the line on at this point?
You're not cutting bait again on Ozuna. Max Fried, put him on the IL. I know he's had 2 starts to begin the season. It hasn't looked like he was last year. It's early on. A lot of pitchers. Sometimes it's all about arm angle, grips on the baseball. You got to let these guys pan out. Now, speaking of, and sticking ironically with the same team, Drew Smiley is a guy I had seen drop everywhere. Came into the season, signed with the Braves, had a rough outing against Philly, who can be one of the Dinkin' team, if you will, who just can get hits. I snagged him. He's going against the strikeout-prone Cubs tomorrow in Chicago. I don't think they've scored more than 5 runs in any game this season so far. He is one of those guys, I think, if you can find him on the waiver wire with a nice strikeout ratio, he's got an uptick on his mile per hour, on his fastball right now, which always looks fantastic on a starting pitcher. I say look for guys like that. I had sniped him. He was dropped. Immediately my eyes popped open. I was like, oh, nope. I'm going to try to take advantage of something. A guy like Jake Arrieta, who had performed well, I think is a safe drop. That's not a panic. A couple guys like that. One guy I'm starting to notice, and it continues to stick with the Braves here, Austin Riley is a guy who's starting to worry me. Again, a very high strikeout rate, corrected last year. I still want to hold on to him. Something tells me to just wait. But again, like we were saying at the beginning of this podcast, really want to try to get ahead of the curves on if this Jed Lowrie thing is legitimate. Like, I don't blame people. Michael A. Taylor is another guy for the Kansas City Royals that is intriguing me. He had corrected something with his stance where he's not doing the leg kick anymore, and suddenly he's looking like he was projected to be in Washington as a 2020, 270 kind of play. And I'll say it here, second podcast of Fantasy R&R Baseball Edition Extravaganza, Kansas City Royals are going to be a good team this year. And I have a feeling that if you want to win this season, you have to have one of those bats, potentially one of these pitchers, on your pitching staff.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm going to have to rethink my Roto League. I'm in first place. I don't think I have a Royal, so I might be dropping out of there in a second. But let's keep this personal about my team for a second here.
Sure.
Jorge Soler, while we're on this topic, do I cut bait with him?
No, Jorge Soler, a lot of these hard-hitting, I mean, you got to think Kansas City right now. What's the temperature like in Kansas City? It's got to be decently cold. We're still only in April. The ball's flying in Florida and Atlanta and all these other hot states. Jorge Soler is a bat that's just going to take a minute to get one. When it does, you're going to feel like a fool for dropping. And again, that lineup around him, the Carlos Santanas of the world right now, starting off very sluggish. Not everybody can be Whit Merrifield and Salvador Perez. Again, I'm telling you, this team is really good. I'm really excited to see what Kansas City has in store for us. Don't drop Soler. That's an impatient.
All right, well, you heard it here first. That's going to be my Royal for the rest of the year.
There we go.
Rob, got another question here for you. This might be the last one. Let's go ahead, bust that shovel out, and dig deep. Who is someone to get ahead of the curve on right now that is on your waiver wire? It doesn't have to be everybody's waiver wire, but you're in a pretty deep league. Someone that you're noticing that you could get ahead of the curve on and pick up right now.
All right, great question. This has been one of my favorite baseball players of all time. I've ad-dropped this guy probably 100 million times in the last few years, and I'm calling it now. This is the year. Talk about injuries. Christian Yelich on a lot of teams right now battling injury problems, striking out at a very alarming rate suddenly. Don't fear. Avisail Garcia is here. Milwaukee center field, right field. Struggled last year, just 2 years ago with the Rays, had a monster season. This guy is going to do it this year. He's starting to do it. Available in under 10% in Yahoo leagues right now. Starting to tear the cover off the ball. Had a couple home runs over the weekend. Get on top of this guy before it's too late. Plays in a small ballpark with Miller Park. You got Travis Shaw is another one that's a perfect example, ironically, on the same team. You want to get ahead of the curve on this guy, but I think Avisail Garcia has the potential to be a game changer this year. He has the potential to be a 30-20 kind of guy, 280. I'm going bold on this one because I've been a big fan of this guy. Referred to as Miggy Mini, that's right, Miguel Cabrera back in the day when he played for the White Sox. Get on top of it. Guy lost like, I think, 40, 50 pounds or something in spring training and is really, really good. Hits the ball very hard. All his StatCast numbers saying he's just tearing the cover off the ball. Get him. If you need some outfield depth or if you're in a five outfield league, get him. I'm telling you.
And I just want to congratulate all of the managers that got ahead of Byron Buxton before the season started. You are one of the biggest winners. He is currently ranked 7th in a couple of the points and stats league. Obviously, that's going to fluctuate depending on what kind of league and scoring system you're in. But right now, he's currently hitting .469 after 32 at-bats. 5 home runs, 9 RBIs, got a stolen base, and 8 runs in the year. Congratulations, Byron Buxton. Whatever you did working on your swing in the offseason looks like it's worked. I'm happy to have you in all 3 of my leagues. You are absolutely killing it. What do you think about that guy this year?
I think it's good. A lot of interviews that I've heard from him, they're asking what he's doing different. He said absolutely nothing. He's just being more conscious of his play in the outfield. There's been a lot. He's been injury prone his entire career, running into walls and whatnot. Bryce Harper's even said that early in his career. He had to just realize, like, hey, I need to just tone it down a notch. I mean, you can't go 100%. I mean, you can, but full force, 110. Give your best. Can't do that in baseball. It's 100. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. With that in mind, to jump on a pitcher that people need to get ahead of, and they need to do it quick because he's starting to get rostered. T.J. Antone, the relief pitcher right now for the Cincinnati Reds. They're stretching this guy to be out to be a starter. He is going to be really, really good. Get ahead of him now, even if you're not in a holds league. Just roster this guy because it's only a matter of time until this guy gets a chance, and I have a feeling he's the next big thing in Cincinnati. And I'll even go into a bold statement saying he's going to be better than Luis Castillo, who's rostered 95+% everywhere. This guy's good. Just a batter and a pitcher for you, just to chew on. Check to see if he's out there.
Rob, I absolutely love your fantasy baseball analysis. It's been great to get a couple of these episodes out of the way. And obviously, guys, we'll be back with more of these. We did currently rebrand our YouTube channel. We want to make this a new fresh start with a clean logo. We've uploaded some of our historically bad episodes. Some of our historically good episodes are
Practice
coming
makes
back up on the
perfect.
market. Yeah, that's right. We're going to have more episodes of the Sports Bar. I'm going to be doing Asker and Paul. Next episode for football is going to be the San Francisco draft situation. I think you guys are really going to like it. Once again, this is Fantasy R&R with Ryan and Rob. We will see you next time.